Right. So the theme again is secure multi-party computation. We're going to continue with it. Let me just recap for my sake and yours what we did, what we saw so far. So there's a question of secure two-party computation where there are only two parties, have inputs, they want to compute a function. Either they both get the answer or one of us get the answer, but we don't want to reveal our inputs to each other. Right? So we saw security definition, we saw protocols. In fact, you would have seen two protocols to do this. One is the Goldreich-Mikhaly-Wigderson protocol. It's very simple, right? I mean, it's, in some sense, if I set you up with the right tools, this is the first protocol you would come up with. Right? So it uses secret sharing, right? So it maintains an invariant that at any point of time, the two parties have a secret sharing of the value of the circuit. That one. Garbled circuits. It's a more complicated protocol. It's also more powerful. The advantage compared to GMW is that it runs in, so if you look at GMW, the number of sort of back and forth messages of instruction is proportional to the depth of the circuit. So you have a Boolean circuit, that's deep, that's how much you interact. In Yao's protocol, you just interact twice, actually. So I send you a message, you send me a message, and that's it. Right? So it's sort of minimal number of rounds of interaction. Both of them have the feature, rather disadvantage, that the amount of communication is proportional to the size of the circuit in the size of the actual circuit. In Yao's garbled circuit, it's obvious because I garble the circuit. Right? For each gate, I do something and I send it to you. In GMW, again, for each multiplication gate, we need to run a protocol. We need to run an oblivious transfer protocol. And therefore, the number of bits of communication is proportional to the number of multiplication or AND gates in the circuit, which could be pretty large. In general, it could be as big as the circuit itself. Right, so that's the feature or bug in both the protocols, that the communication scales with the computational complexity. So if you think about it, right, let's say you don't care about security. Okay, so I have X, you have Y. Okay, no security. How would I compute? How would we compute f of x, y? I would send X to you. Okay, and you compute and tell me the answer, or you send me Y, I send you X, whatever. Doesn't matter. Okay? The communication in this process is proportional to the input line. Okay? It doesn't make any reference to the computational complexity of computing the function, like the circuit complexity, the Turing machine complexity, the running time of the Turing machine, nothing in the insecure version. Okay? Makes sense? But suddenly, when you ask for security, we communicate a lot, right? As much as the computational complexity of computing instructions. What gives? Why should this be the case? Yeah. Do you need to pay that big a price for security? That is the question we are going to ask today. And the answer is no, you can actually get as good a communication as for the insecure protocol, which is basically send you X and go. But I'm jumping ahead. This is also the feature of the other protocol, the other sort of version of the protocol you saw, the VGW, Vinod, Goldwasser, Wigderson, you heard it from the horse's mouth, right? And this is a different variant. It's an n-party protocol, right? And by the way, GMW and Yao can also be made into n-party protocols. There's no sort of real difference in that sense, with n-1 corrupted parties. Well, maybe n-1 is too much, n-2 corrupted parties. Yeah, this can all be done. The thing that VGW does is it achieves information periodic security. In the sense, it gives you security even if the corrupted parties are arbitrarily malicious. Okay, they can break all crypto. There's no crypto in this world. You can still get something. That's what VGW shows. That's the good thing about it. The bad thing about it is that it only achieves security against corruptions, against an adversary that can pool together, at most, strictly less than n over 2 players, and say, let me pull these guys together, let me learn their inputs, so on and so on. Such an adversary, you can handle. VGW can handle. Shafi probably showed you a protocol that's secure against n over 3 corrupted parties, but it doesn't matter. You can actually, there are results, subsequent results that extend it to n over 2. Okay, so that's a qualitatively different regime from the two-party set. Okay, so if you set n equals 2 in the BGW protocol, you get nothing. It only achieves security against less than one corruption, strictly less than one corruption. Therefore, right? So these are qualitatively different regimes. There is a protocol, and again, the amount of communication is proportional to the size of the computing function. It seems like a common theme, we will break this thing. Okay, so that's it. So our goal is to get, two-party. In fact, whatever I'm going to say also generalizes to multiple parties. It doesn't really matter. Two-party protocol with one corruption generalizes to n-party protocols with n-1 corruptions. Let's keep it simple. So two-party protocol with one corruption. Again, let's talk about semi-honest. That also can be generalized to malicious corruptions, where you have 2 rounds. So the best possible, right? I send you something, you send me something back. That's really the best you can hope for. And so if I would say optimal communication, so this will be basically for general functions, it will be proportional to the length of the input. What's the length of the output? Independent of the computational complexity. Yeah, this is what you get for insecure. Without caring about security, this is what you get for communication. And you get the same thing with security. That's what we'll show. And the tool to achieve this will be something called fully homomorphic encryption, a special type of encryption called fully homomorphic encryption. This will define and construct. Okay, that's the goal. Yeah, does that make sense? Good. So let me tell you what a fully homomorphic encryption is. And why does it give you this kind of two-party computation? Then we'll go ahead and do math. Okay. So what is a fully homomorphic encryption? You can define a secret key version of fully homomorphic encryption or a public key version of fully homomorphic encryption. Again, let's keep things as simple as possible. Let's do secret key. Okay. So that's going to be complicated things later. Secret key. Encryption. Here's what it is. It is key gen and DEC, same as before. You generate keys, it's a secret key encryption, so there's only one key. There's this, you and I have the same key. I can encrypt with the secret key, you can decrypt the same as before. The one new ingredient, the one new interesting ingredient, is an algorithm called the eval algorithm, which takes as input a function f. What function f? Think of a function f as specified by a Boolean circuit. Okay. It's a Boolean circuit with XORs and ANDs, NAND gates, doesn't matter. And ciphertext C1 up to CL, I'd say. All right. You should think about each of these as encryptions of bits x1 up to xl. Each cipher, you get L ciphertext, each one is an encryption of something. Some bit. And it outputs a ciphertext C star, which will be an encryption of f of x1. So in other words, so I get encryptions of inputs x1 up to xl. I can do something to these ciphertexts, and out comes a ciphertext, which when you decrypt will give you this number. That's what it means for this to be an encryption of x1. Yeah, good. So for So in some sense, there's a following commutative diagram, right? In your next one of Excel, you can either compute the function on the plain text, or you can encrypt it, run the eval, homomorphic evaluation algorithm, get a ciphertext C star, decrypt it, you will get the same answer. Okay, that's fine. This makes the secret key. Decryption with the secret key. So decryption with the secret key is just computing function. Yeah, that's what you want. So eval, the existence of eval is not a security property. Right? Security just says there's a semantic security of the encryption algorithm. Okay, give you ciphertext, you can't learn whether it's an encryption of 0 or not. That's semantic security. Eval is a functionality property. The fact that you can do something even if sort of bits are encrypted is a functionality property. It says nothing about security. Okay? So makes sense? Yes.
But we'll just ask for the security of the ciphertext.
Yeah.
Because we were using randomness when we generated ciphertext before, so like technically couldn't it be like one particular choice of some random string that actually makes it not safe? Or is a ciphertext?
So that's okay, right? I mean, it could be that the encryption algorithm says if the random string is 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, I'm going to output them as such. That's okay, because the guarantee, the semantic security guarantee is probabilistic. For a random choice of R, the random string of encryption, you're okay. You're not going to hit the 0, 0, 0.
So this could be kind of insecure.
No, not at all.
But what if this did that? The 0, 0, 0?
The encryption algorithm,
Oh, it has to. Yeah.
It has to be, security is a property of the encryption algorithm.
Does that have to have kind of a random encryption C-star?
The eval?
Yeah.
Eval works on any ciphertext. So the guarantee, right, is that for every C1 up to CL, which is an encryption of X1 up to XL, with any randomness you want, really, right? This should produce a C star such that decryption of C star equals, and for every F, really, right? And for every X, X1 to XL, is equal to F of X1 to XL. Yeah? This is a correctness guarantee. And that is for all. Yeah?
Okay. I'm not sure if I answered the question.
What is your question?
Like, what if specifically the encryption that C star is not a random one? It's one of
C star may not be a random one. There's no requirement for C star to be a random encryption of F of X1 to XL. But think about it this way. Eval does not get the secret key.
Yeah.
Eval only gets a ciphertext. So if the encryption algorithm produces semantically secure ciphertext, no matter what eval does on the ciphertext, it doesn't know anything about that. That's what I meant by saying eval is a functionality.
Yeah.
The guarantee of eval is functionality, not security. That's important to understand, right? Good. So this is what it is. This is what it is. One possible eval algorithm is somehow you bake the secret key into the head of the eval, and that's a terrible thing to do. We don't want that. We don't want that. In fact, this possibility is not allowed by the definition of this algorithm, because eval is supposed to be a fixed algorithm, which takes as input sort of nothing. Okay, so it should work for all sort of secret keys and stuff. So this possibility doesn't exist. Yeah. Good. So this is what I want. In fact, we already saw in class before that some of the encryption schemes public key encryption schemes, secret encryption schemes are already homomorphic in certain senses. In the sense that you can compute certain functions on the encrypted inputs, just add ciphertext together, and what you get is an encryption of the sum of the two numbers encrypted in the ciphertext. Or multiply ciphertext together, you get the product of the message. So that's that we saw. And it's not, at this point it shouldn't look like magic to you that you can actually do it. while getting semantic security. But what was open for a long time is whether you can do any function of your choosing. You can compute, this function f can be any Boolean circuit of your choosing. Can you actually support homomorphism for any Boolean circuit? That was an open question for a while. Was resolved earlier this decade, and that's what I'm going to tell you. Okay. So let's very quickly see if you have a homomorphic encryption, right? So I didn't tell you, this is the correctness property. I need a couple of other properties. Security, right? Semantic security. As before, I'm not even going to bother writing it down. It just says that if I encrypt 0 versus encrypt 1, give it to you, or maybe many encryptions of 0 or many encryptions of 1, you should give it. The one additional property you need is something called circuit privacy. Which I'll define in a minute, but let me motivate it by showing you how to use homomorphic encryption to construct a secure two-party computation protocol. Okay, that was the goal to begin with. So OKG implies communication efficient two-party computation protocol. Okay. So let's say you have again Alice, who has x1 up to xl. Bob, which has a function f. It could be that there's a universal function and Bob has y1 up to yl, and they're trying to compute f of x and y, but that's okay, it's all the same thing. Now you want to run a compute f of x in a secure way. How do you do it? Alice generates the secret key by running the keygen algorithm. Alice encrypts, right, with the secret key x1 up to xl, sends it to Bob. So then Bob looks at it. Bob says, look, what do I know about x1 up to xl? Nothing, right? Encryption is semantically secure, so this looks like an encryption of anything else. Now Bob runs a val with the function f and these ciphertexts. Okay, so this guy gets a ciphertext C star, sends it back to Alice. Alice has the secret key, she decrypts and gets f of x1 up to xl. Okay, that's it. Super simple, right? Super simple. What is the communication complexity of this protocol? Well, it's the size of the encryption of x1 a bit. This is the security parameter, or some polynomial in the security parameter, times the number of bits. So L times polynomial in the security parameter. So that's the communication complexity. It's L times poly security parameter plus the size of one ciphertext, which is security parameter, poly security parameter. In any case, the point is that this is L times poly security parameter, L plus 1, never mind. Okay. Poly security parameter. The key point is that this is independent of the computational complexity of the function. It only depends on the input line. That's why this protocol is qualitatively better than any of the protocols you saw in class. Good. All right. So that's that. But we only saw security for Alice, right? I mean, Alice has to protect her inputs. Semantic security already guarantees that. What about for Bob? Right? What about for Bob? Well, what do you want? The guarantee you want is that this ciphertext, C star, together with the secret key, right? Alice knows all these things, reveals f of x, obviously, but no more information about f. It only reveals f of x, and it doesn't have, kind of other information about the function f, the circuit f, kind of baked into it. Okay, that's called circuit privacy. Let me not define it formally right at this point. Okay, we'll get there. We'll get there when we actually construct the scheme. And okay, so this will be that. One other thing which I didn't which I have to tell you. Somehow I tacitly assumed that when I take a bunch of ciphertexts, right, I compute a function, homomorphically evaluate a function on it, I produce a ciphertext, C star, that looks like the original ciphertext. Okay? That's a tacit assumption I made that's not in the definition. Yes, I mean, the definition says eval blah 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 outputs blah. Okay, I mean, who says the blah looks like the inputs? Okay, the definition doesn't say. In particular, if you just want semantic security and this functionality of eval, right? I mean, this input-output relation of eval, you can construct a trivial homomorphic encryption scheme. Okay, so forget circuit privacy for a second. You can trivially achieve homomorphic encryption. How do you do it? Okay. Remember, I'm not restricting the how C star looks. It could be strings, cats and dogs. I don't care. Okay. I mean, what would you do?
You could send the F back.
Correct. Correct. So C star eval is the identity function. Okay. It outputs the input C1 up to CR together with that. Okay. So that's a string. It's still semantically secure because whatever eval does, it cannot break semantic security, right? And it isolates correctness. How? The decryption algorithm, it looks at its input. It says, does it look like a small kind of original ciphertext, in which case I'll run the decryption algorithm. Does it look like a function concatenated with a bunch of ciphertext, in which case I'll decrypt all these ciphertexts, apply the function to it, and output the result. Okay? I mean, it's completely trivial, right? What does it ruin in our picture here? It ruins communication complexity. Because I tacitly assumed that this is the size of C star, right? This guy. I assumed that it's falling in the security parameter. What I just said is not falling. In fact, it has the entire circuit in its done. So what this trivial thing does not satisfy, then what you want non-trivial homomorphic encryption schemes to satisfy is the property of compactness. Which says that the size of C star is wholly in the security parameter. Right? So, in some sense, like I compute this complicated function, okay, what I output should not store information about the entire function. It should be doing something non-trivial. Yeah, that's capture very well. That gives you communication efficiency. That is what you want to get communication efficiency. Okay? So these are the properties you want. You want correctness, but that's correctness. Yeah. And you want these properties. Yes.
They restrict that the function f has to be polynomial in the size of its inputs.
Yeah.
And inputs have to be polynomial in the size of the security parameter.
Yeah.
Then the function f is always polynomial.
Good. Good. Really, the question is, I am going to think about the function size, the circuit size is polynomial in the security parameter, or polynomial in the size of the input, but it could be an arbitrary polynomial in the size of the input. Unbounded polynomials. Is it L squared? No problem. L to the 100? No problem. What I want is that the communication is a fixed polynomial in the security parameter, shouldn't grow with which polynomial the function size. That's the. So, I mean, this is hidden in this notation. I mean, quite unfortunately. You know what, just to make things explicit, let me say L times security parameter, okay? Independent of the size of the function. Circuit computing. That's key. Right? That's key. Okay, so that's what it is. In fact, really the key property is compactness, as you can see. That's the non-trivial thing to achieve. So we just saw a trivial scheme that achieves semantic security, but no compactness, right? You can also construct a scheme that is semantically secure and circuit private. So the scheme we constructed is not circuit private because C star contains the code of the circuit of the function. You can do one more step and achieve both semantic security and circuit privacy without compactness. I'll leave it to you as an exercise. Okay? So this you can do starting from one-way functions. Okay, starting from one-way functions. Think Yellow's garbled circuits. Okay, you can turn that into a homomorphic encryption which satisfies semantic security and circuit privacy, but not compactness. And that's useless for us, right? That's useless. Yeah, I mean, we want to move beyond. Okay. So compactness is the key property of homomorphic encryption as opposed to everything else you saw before. Okay, good. So let's get our hands dirty. Let's actually construct the beast. Okay. Yeah. All right. Very good. Very good. Okay. So to do this, I have to look back about half the course and pull something out of your memory. Okay. And that is this mathematical assumption called learning with errors, which we saw way back. I'm going to recap it. Don't worry if you don't remember. Then we'll slowly construct communications. Yes?
So I'm just curious, if Bob wanted to compute a function on joint input contributed by both him and Alice, he doesn't have the secret key. So is there a way to sort of construct this?
You can.
Right.
So if the setting is Alice has x1 up to xl and Bob has y1 up to yl, let's say, and there's a public circuit f that you want to compute on x and y, well, you can create another circuit which has y1 up to yl baked into it, right? Take the circuit, hard code y1 up to yl. That's another circuit. Just compute it. So that should be. In general, you can do it, even if you don't do this kind of thing. But let's, for simplicity, think of it. All right. So the key tool is the learning with errors assumption. Originally introduced by Reggie. I think the last time yes.
Can you repeat what is the state there?
Good. How do you? Yeah. So the setting that the question was about is where Bob doesn't have a function circuit. Rather, Bob has an input a string y1 up to yl, and they are interested in computing some function on x and y. So now, of course, you can take this function and you can look at the inputs and say, well, let me hard code the y. That gives you another function. Just compute it. That's good. So learning with errors is the key tool. And I think the last time we described the learning with errors assumption, Oded hadn't won the Gödel Prize. Now he has. So it's a major kind of it's a major contribution to the foundations of cryptography, the assumption itself. And of course, we'll show how to use it to construct cool things that you couldn't construct otherwise. So that's learning with errors. Good. Get it right here. Good. Okay. So what is the learning with errors assumption? In fact, I'll mention that we'll use the decisional version. Decisional learning with errors. Learning with errors. It says that it's for every polynomial time, probabilistic polynomial time distinguisher D, it cannot distinguish between the following two objects, following two distributions. D is given a bunch of vectors, A1 and so forth, up to AM. Think of M as polynomial in the security parameter. Okay, so these vectors are drawn at random from ZQ to the N. And again, security parameter. So N is a number, right? I mean, this is the dimension of these vectors. Each A is drawn at random from ZQ to the N. And there are M of them. M, think about it as very large. Okay, you're given very many vectors, N to the 100 vectors, let's say. And then I'm also given bi, b1 up to bn, which is the inner product, and I also put 7. I pick an S at random from ZQ to the n, I take the inner product, and I add an error to it. What is the error? The error is, think of it as a small number, a number that is considerably smaller than Q. Okay, so generally comes from a distribution. Okay, so here, S comes from randomly from ZQ to the n, and the EI, they come from some error distribution. Think about it as randomly 0 or 1, or randomly a number from a small range. Okay. And he says yes or no. Okay, he says yes or no. What is the other world? This should be close to the probability that D is given again A1 up to AM, randomly from Z to the N, and EI are randomly chosen from ZQ. Okay, so this is what I want. So I let D play one of two games. Game 1, I pick in my head A1 up to AM, random vectors, right? I pick S in my head one time. I compute inner product. So these are computing equations on the S, on the unknown S in some sense, thing in my head. And I add errors and give it to you. That's the first world. The other world, second world, is when I give you just total random junk. Okay, so A's are random, B's are random, there's no S, there's nothing. Okay, so that's it. You cannot distinguish between these two worlds. And that's the learning with errors assumption, rather than decisional. So we already saw this. We saw what it takes for this to be secure. We saw attacks, right? So typically, I would think about n as the. Okay, I used lambda for security parameter. Okay, fine. So lambda is the security parameter. M is some polynomial in lambda, let's say n to the 100. Q is strictly less than 2 to the n to the 1 minus epsilon. Some epsilon bigger than 0. We saw, or rather I told you, we didn't see an attack, that if Q is actually 2 to the n, then you can completely break this assumption. So it better be to the answer on epsilon. And chi, think about it as a uniformly random distribution in the range minus n to n, rather minus b to b for some b equals polygon. So let's breathe here. Okay, this is not like factoring, say, 256-bit numbers, and that's not the case, right? So, what really is going on here, right? So, there are two parameters of importance here. One is n. N is a dimension of all these objects. All the vectors, they all have dimension. Okay? If n is 1, you're dead. Because it becomes a one-dimensional lattice problem. There are reasons why you're not happy. So n had better be large. Okay, that's the one thing to remember. M, it doesn't matter. Just make it any polynomial. It doesn't seem to affect security at all. Like no matter what, which polynomial n is. So make it. Forget it. Okay, that's what I'm saying. Q and the error, the width of the error b, right? They don't seem to matter independently of one another. But what seems to matter is the ratio between the modulus Q and the error B. Which you can imagine, right? I mean, if you have a particular Q and a particular B, you can multiply everything by 1,000,000, and Q becomes large, and B also becomes large, and things shouldn't be any different. So what does matter, the intuition says, what matters is Q divided by B, and that is actually the case. It's formally the case. So these are the two things to remember. So two things to remember are n has to be large. In practice, people say 1024 or more. Again, practice, you have to run attacks against this and say, well, when does the attack kind of stop working in a reasonable time? 2 Q over B has to be small. Right? The signal to noise ratio has to be small. The noise has to be considerable relative to the signal. These are the 2 sort of things to remember about LWE. The rest you can forget for the future, today at least. Okay, so that's this is learning with errors. Questions? Again, let's breathe. It's a bit too much. Yeah, any questions? Including what I told you and what I did. Comfortable? Yes, awesome.
It's about the fully homomorphic.
Okay, sure.
It kind of came up in the very beginning.
Yeah.
So our semantic security definition is only for the encryption scheme alone.
Correct.
And there is now separate semantic security definition for C star.
No. No, and I claim it's unnecessary.
Because you can say if they're like insecure, you can break the original one.
Correct. Correct.
Multi-message.
Correct. Exactly. Precisely.
And it's like, do we only need semantic security? Can we like have CPA security or something?
CCA security. CPA is semantic security. They're the same thing.
Chosen plain text attack?
Chosen plain text attack is basically semantic security, right? CPA security. Yeah, you can have CPA security. Yeah, fair enough. You can have it. What does CPA security say? You have an oracle, right? And I can give the guy, many pairs of messages. Either he'll encrypt the left messages or the right messages, and I can't tell what he's doing. You can have it. So that in fact is what I'm calling semantic security. That you can have. But CCA security, which I didn't tell you about in the full course, which is chosen ciphertext security, which is I have an oracle that I can give ciphertext to and it'll decrypt it for me. That you cannot have, but that's an advanced copy. That's very unethical. Okay. All right. So that's yeah. We're ready to move on. Great. Okay. So let's first use this assumption to construct a secret key encryption scheme, which we actually already saw, but let's recap. Just a plain secret key encryption. No frills attached. Okay. So secret key encryption. So I need keygen, right? Keygen has to generate a secret key. What is a secret key? What do you think? I need keygen and that, yeah? So and I'm going to encrypt the bit x. And that, which takes a ciphertext, a secret key, and the ciphertext numbers. Okay, so what is it now? We pull things out of the assumption and put them into boxes and things work out. I mean, that's the way it's set up. Is an S. Right? The secret key is a random S drawn from 0 to the end. Yeah, that's that. The encryption of X, I pick a random A. Right, A, I pick at random from 0 to the end. I compute A in product S plus E plus the message X, where E is drawn from the error distribution chi, which comes associated with the LWE definition. But think of it as a uniformly random number in some range. Okay, some small range. Okay, so B, you should think about it as considerably smaller range. Okay, so this is what the encryption looks like. It looks like an A, and let me give it a name. Let me say B, which is A in a product S plus an arrow plus x, which is the bit you want to encrypt. Yeah, that's the first thing you think about, really. And this is semantically secure. So once I design an encryption algorithm, even if you forget about decryption, I can talk about semantic security. Okay? The existence of a decryption algorithm is a matter of correctness. You know, it's a separate issue, right? I can talk about security, and this is semantically secure, indeed. Why? Because if I give you encryption of many X's, right, they are going to look like those guys. Okay, many A's together with the noisy inner products, they're all going to look like random. Okay, the adversary cannot distinguish between these guys. And the case where this is replaced by a uniformly random number. And if it is in fact uniformly random, it's a one-type pad. Okay, it hides all information about the message, and therefore you get semantic security. Okay, that's it. Semantic security or CPA security follows directly from the decision of whether you. Okay, so we can talk about it, forgetting what the decryption does. Now let's talk about decryption. Okay, so decryption takes an input which is a ciphertext, which is A and B. I'm calling it. Okay, fine. The B here is different from B here, but anyway, so B is the second component of the ciphertext. All right, so how would you decrypt? Right? I have the secret key S. I have the ciphertext. What do you think? Help me out. Yes.
I guess you do B minus AS and then check if it's like.
Good. So I do B minus A I compute A in a product S, subtract it from B, right? So that kills this guy. What I get is some error plus the bit, the message there. And now I'm in a little bit of trouble, right? I mean, I'm either getting an error plus 0 or error plus 1. You know, those don't look very different, right? Distribution of it. One looks like a random number from minus B to B. The other one looks like a random number from minus B plus 1 to B plus 1, by encrypted 1. So they don't look great. So to make the decryption algorithm correct, to recover the message with probability 1, what I need to do is separate these things out, these distributions out. And one way to do it is to not add x to this, but add x times q over 2. Okay. So now things look like, well, either a random number from minus b to b, or a random number from minus b plus q over 2 to b plus q over 2. Those look very, very different, okay, as long as b is sufficiently small. Like smaller than q over 4 or something like that. Then you can do it. Okay, so again, the decryption algorithm compute b minus a in a product S is in minus b to b. If this is the case, output message equals 0. If it is in q over 2 minus b to q over 2 plus b, output message equals 1. Okay, this is good. If it's outside, you don't care. That's never going to happen, right? So, yeah, so pi is uniform. That's how the decryption algorithm. Great, it's a super simple encryption scheme, right? In fact, you just don't need to know any number theory to except modular arithmetic. You don't need to know groups, generators, quadratic residuosity, nothing. It's as simple as you can get. All right. So this we are going to squeeze everything out of this. All right. Observation number 1. This encryption scheme is already additively homomorphic. Is observation number 1. Additively in the sense of what? You can take an encryption of x, bit x, an encryption of x prime, bit x prime. You can construct a ciphertext which is an encryption of the sum of x and x prime, mod 2. In other words, XOR of x and x prime. Okay. This follows straightforwardly. This is my claim. Let's see it. Okay, so additively. Okay, so let's see it. Say you have two ciphertexts. C1, which is A1, B1, where B1 is A1 in the product S plus E1 plus X1. Q over 2. Yeah, all this is done mod Q over the group is equal to the n. And you have C2, same thing, except I'm changing all the subscripts to 2. The same secret key, right? So these are two encryptions under the same secret key of two different messages, X1, X1 and X2. Yeah, this is what you want is to construct a ciphertext C3, which looks like, has to look like A3B3, I guess, which decrypts to X1 XOR X2. That's a goal. You don't know the secret key. If you did, you would decrypt both of them, re-encrypt to the X1 XOR X2. Know what you want, right? So this is all you have. How do you do it? Okay. It's the very first thing to figure out. Yes?
You could just add them, but
Nicely you wrote it down.
that kind of messes with the error.
Okay, good. Very good. But not too much, yes?
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, not too much. So A3 is going to be A1 plus A2. Yeah, just add them together. And B3 is B1 plus B2. Yeah. What does B1 plus B2 look like? Let's add them together by linearity. This is A1 plus A2 in a product S, right? Plus E1 plus E2 plus X1 plus X2 times Q over 2 rounded. Okay. So what I want is that this is a ciphertext that decrypts. When you try to decrypt it using the secret key, it decrypts to X1 XOR X2. Right? That's what I want. Let's see if it does. Okay, so let's see if it does. When I decrypt, what do? I take this guy in a product with S and subtract from here. So this guy goes away. Right? This guy goes away. What remains is X1 plus X2 times Q over 2, which is what, if you think about it. If X1 and X2 are both 0, it is 0, right? If X1 and X2 are both 1, it is still 0. It's close to 0, yes? Because it is 2 times Q over 2 seal, which is very close to Q, plus minus 1. And if you take mod Q, it's 1. It's very, very small. Plus an error, right? So that's what happens when X1 and X2 are both 0 or both 1. When they are 0, 1 or 1, 0, it is close to Q. It is Q over 2. So when you decrypt, assuming that this error E1 plus E2 is very small, you're going to get X1 XOR X2. So when you decrypt, so decryption gives you E1 plus E2 plus X1 plus X2 times Q over 2, which is basically E1 plus E2 plus some error, E star, I'll tell you where this comes from, plus X1 XOR X2 times Q over 2. What is this E star? This E star comes in when X1 and X2 are both 1. When they're both 1, you have 2 times Q over 2, right? Which is Q plus 1. And the plus 1 is the E star. Okay? And the rest of it is 0, which is X1 XOR X2. Yeah, does it make sense? I'm converting the plus to, the addition doesn't show up. The addition only shows up mod 2 because I'm multiplying by Q over 2, right? Except there's a Q over 2 rounded, which is a bit of a mess. Let me account for it in E star. So when I decrypt it, I'm going to check if this number is close to Q over 2 or close to 0. And I will get the correct answer as long as decryption works, gives me the correct answer, which is XOR of the 2 bits, as long as E1 E1 plus E2 plus E star, the absolute value is smaller than Q over 4. Yeah. Which is true if E1 and the absolute value of E2 is less than Q over, well, 9, let's say. Really Q over 8, but E star bothers me. Okay, so Q over 9. Take it. Okay. Yeah. So if the original errors are small enough, then when you add them, they're not going to grow and become an overflow of the limit, which is Q over 4, and then you're good. So it is additively homomorphic with this catch. Okay. With this catch that, oh. Yeah, does it make sense? So if you want to add a million numbers, you have to encrypt with noise smaller than Q over a million. Otherwise you won't. Yeah, that's okay. No problem, you know. That's fine.
So here, like, x is a bit 0 and 1, and
Yes.
then you multiply by q over 2. What if you, like, wanted to encode, like, x from 0 to 3, and then you did, like,
Q over 3.
like,
That would
8
still
over-
work. That would still work. You would still get semantic security. You would still get additive homomorphism. The E star would become a little bit bigger than before, but it doesn't.
But it'll
We have
mess,
to account for it. Won't mess with.
or it'll mess with the multiplication later, or?
Multiplication. Okay, so let's not there yet, right? So to tell you the truth, the way I would handle large numbers as a theorist is to say everything in the world is bits. And number mod 3 is also a sequence of bits, 2 bits in fact. Right? Just write a Boolean circuit for whatever you want to compute and compute. That's how I would handle it as a theorist. As a practitioner, maybe not the best way to do it, and then you have to you can do it. You do all of these things. The details get messy, to say the least, but you can do all these things. In fact, you can make the sort of the plain text space not just mod 3, not mod 2, not mod 3. You can make it an ideal, sort of in general an ideal. Yeah.
I just realized that where you said Q over B has to be small, should it actually be B over Q has to be small? I just want to make sure.
No, Q over B has to be small, right? So this is for security. Yes, if Q over B is large, right? Think of Q over B is large, right? The Q is 2 to the n, or 2 to the 2 to the n, yeah, and B is 1. Yeah, that's, then you lose security. For correctness, you're right, that Q over B has to be large. Yeah? So, you have two forces. So Q over B has to be large. Correctness didn't come in here at all. What correctness? What are you talking about? But when you design an encryption scheme, you do care about correctness. And that has to, yeah, Q has to be sufficiently larger than B for correctness. Yeah. Now you ask, whoa, okay. So, you have two constraints. Use the intersection and the empty set. Okay. In which case we go home, right? But it isn't, for the following reason. Q over B can be as large as 2 to the n. In fact, 2 to the n to the 0.99 for security. Okay, this is what I didn't write that. Yeah, that one. Yeah, Q is 2 to the n to the 1 minus epsilon. You can put it. You can set it as much as Q to the n to the 1 minus epsilon. What does that mean in terms of this encryption scheme? For the homomorphism of the encryption scheme, you can add as many as 2 to the n to the 1 minus epsilon numbers together, and you would still get correctness while getting security at the same time. Yeah. So intersection is not empty. Make sense? Yes.
Just roughly speaking, how small does Q over B?
For security or correctness?
For security.
For security, you can. For security, really, I want to set Q to be as close to B as possible, right? Or I want to set B to be as close to Q as possible. Why? Because I want to add as much. The more the noise I add, the more secure this becomes. In fact, if you think about it, if the noise is a uniformly random number from 0 to Q minus 1, then I mean, yeah, sure. Right? So it would make intuitive sense that the larger B becomes relative to Q, the more secure you get. In other words, if Q over B you want Q over B to be as small as possible.
Like, what is the relationship between security and
Good. Excellent. So let me tell you this. So if Q over B is 2 to the n to the 1 minus epsilon, like fix n, Q over B, write it as a function of n. Let's say it's 2 to the n to the 1 minus epsilon. Then you can attack, the best known attack runs in time 2 to the O tilde of n to the epsilon. Okay? Sorry?
There's no B in there.
There is no B. That's what I'm saying. B does not matter. Q does not matter. The only thing that matters for the attack is Q over B. Okay? So give me your favorite Q, give me your favorite B. Okay, let me compute Q divided by B. Okay? Write it as 2 to the n to the 1 minus epsilon for some epsilon, yes? The attack runs in that time, asymptotically. Yes?
The board, isn't it Q over B should be ordered 2 to the n 1 minus epsilon, or?
Correct. Absolutely. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you. Yes. Very good. I think of B as some polynomial in n. Doesn't matter. But you're right. Absolutely. Very good. Right, so I could set Q over B to be 2 to the n to the 0.99. Then the attack would run in time 2 to the n to the 0.01. That's okay. It's sub-exponential in the security parameter. You have to be careful. When you set concrete parameters, these asymptotics kind of swoosh, go out of the window, and then you have to actually look at the attacks and see what they do. And in fact, there are people doing it. You go to, what's it called? Latticechallenge.org is a website which has LWE sort of challenges, and there's a leaderboard that says, who is the person who came up with the fastest attack on a certain LWE. Right, fastest attack not in terms of n and 1 minus epsilon, but in terms of actual CPU cycles. Okay. So people do it. That's a different game altogether. We're not going to play it. Okay. Yeah. Asymptotics, this is what. Make sense? Good. Okay. Very good. So this is additive homomorphism. So a few things that did I tell you or not? I mean, maybe I didn't tell you. So in some sense, like, when the next item in the agenda is multiplicative homomorphism, right? And that really is an integral thing here. And to do multiplicative homomorphism, what I'm going to show you here will require me to set Q over B to be 2 to the n to the some small constant epsilon. Right? That's what I'm going to show you today. But we have worked really hard in this space of sort of people. We can actually get fully homomorphic encryption while setting Q over B to be a polynomial in the security problem. Okay, so then the best known attack runs in time what? 2 to the n, more or less. 2 to the O tilde. Okay, so you get, in other words, you get exponential security while getting a fully homomorphic encryption. Okay, so that's one feature. The other feature is that, well, apparently people are now going crazy about designing, or rather constructing real quantum computers. Okay, never mind quantum computers, quantum algorithms. Okay, there are no quantum algorithms that solve LWE in time better than the classical runtime, which is 2 to the n. Okay, so unless Peter gets his act together and constructs quantum algorithm for LWE, or Odette for that matter, you're good at this point. Yeah? At this point. What else do I want to tell you? There are many other things about LWE that I'm really not telling you. For example, if you break LWE in this sense, you can solve, well, you can solve what are called lattice problems. Okay, and this is completely amazing set of problems, the computational theory that I really am not telling you at all. But if you're interested, I can give you pointers. Okay. So the one thing you can show one thing you cannot show in the discrete log world is that if you solve discrete log, what does it mean to solve discrete log? Discrete log on the average, right? I give you a random generator, a random g to the x, you find x. Random problems are not what people traditionally study in algorithms, right? So you know, I either solve min-cut for all graphs, or I don't, right? I mean, you know, the things that people study are worst case sort of algorithms. In fact, NP completeness is all about worst case hardness problems. Okay? So, you know, we believe that many problems are worst case hard, yes? That sounds good. But for crypto, you need average case hardness. So there is a huge gap, in my opinion, right? For lattices, what you can show is that if you can solve LWE, which is an average case hardness, which is an average case problem, then you can take this LWE solver and you can build out of it an algorithm that finds short vectors on lattices, which I haven't told you what it is, but it solves a certain computational problem in the worst case. Namely, it finds a short vector in the lattice for every possible lattice. Yeah. Right. Think about the analog in the discrete log world. Okay, so you have an algorithm that given a random g and a random x, maybe a random p, solves discrete log. Suppose I could take this algorithm and solve discrete log for every g, for every x, and for every p. That would be fantastic. We don't have such a theorem for discrete log. We do have such a theorem for LWE. Okay, so that's a unique feature that I don't know of any other kind of computation. Okay? So all these things, I'm not really getting into any of these things in the class. I'm a horse with with one goal, which is to show you fully homomorphic encryption. That's it. Okay. If you want, I can give you a reference. Yeah, good. Okay. So. All right. Multiplicative. All right, good. So can I take two of these ciphertexts and create somehow another ciphertext whose decryption is a product of x1 and x2? Yeah, that's the question. So how would I mean, there was a very natural way to add two ciphertexts together, component-wise add. How would you multiply? How would you homomorphically multiply two ciphertexts? Heaven knows, right? How would you multiply? How do you multiply two vectors? Let me ask you. You know, there's not one notion of multiplication. Right? You can component-wise multiply vectors. Yeah. You can take tensor product of the two vectors, which makes things very large. These are all notions. Do any of them work? Turns out, no. It's long drawn out no, because one of these things can actually be made to work. The tensor product can actually be made to work, but that's not the way we are going to go. Okay, we are going to say, I want multiplicative homomorphism. I don't know how to make this creature multiplicative homomorphic. Okay, so what I'm going to do, I'm going to go back to the secret key encryption. I'm going to redesign the secret key encryption, not in a completely different way. I'm not going to throw out the whole thing. But slightly redesign the encryption. Right? Which will make it multiplicative. Okay, so that's the last of today. All right. So, what am I going to do? The keygen is exactly the same. I mean, come on. Like, what else am I going to do, right? I mean, I don't know what else is secret in this world. So I'm going to encrypt things differently, decrypt things differently. But how? So here is my encryption algorithm. could. You know, let me write the Raghib encryption in the following way. Okay. What does this mean? This is a matrix with n plus 1 rows. The first n rows are the first 10 components of the Raghib encryption. In other words, random numbers in ZQ. The last guy is the inner product of A and S plus error. That's it. Okay, so let me. So B1, in fact, BI is AI in a product S plus DI. And do the same thing many, many times. How many times? We'll get there in a second. Yeah. So what did I just do? I wasn't happy with one Raghib encryption. I said, let's do it many, many times. Okay. So far I haven't encrypted the message, but this is really many LWE samples. Okay. And now, here's what I'm going to do. And then I'm going to add the message to it. How am I going to add the message? I say X, which is a bit, by the way, times the identity matrix is what I'm going to do. That's the first attempt. Yeah. So it's a matrix. I have to do something, right? So I add either add the identity matrix or do nothing if X is 0, which is exactly this. That's what I'm doing. Now that doesn't work for the same reason that our first attempt at Raghib's encryption didn't work. When you try to decrypt, what you're going to get is X times the identity matrix, which is either the identity matrix or the 0 matrix, plus error, which is not clear. You can discern, the message from it. So you have to error correct somehow. Yes, I is not good enough. The identity matrix is not good enough. So one thing you can do is you can say, look, take the identity matrix, multiply it by q over 2, and add. Yeah, that's a good thing. That's what we did for Raghib. You could do that, but I'm going to do things slightly differently. Okay. So I'm going to do the following. I'm going to do the following matrix, which is so special that I'll actually give it a name. I'll call this G the gadget matrix. That is the following. The first row of the gadget matrix is all powers of 2, up to the largest power smaller than q, right? Which is, well, from q to the I for the largest power. And then 0. Yeah? Okay, that was fun. Let's do it again. And so on and so forth. This is a block diagonal matrix where the blocks in the diagonal are this vector, all powers of 2. So another way to write this, you don't have to know this, but call this vector little g. This matrix capital G is G tensor the identity matrix. That's one way to write it. Okay, but if you don't understand what that is, this is the explicit description of the matrix. Okay. So in some sense, I'm not adding X to the Raghib encryption, right? To the LWE sample. Sometimes I'm adding X, sometimes I'm adding X times Q over 2. In fact, I'm adding everything in between, in a sense. Okay, so, all right, should be mysterious at this point, for good reason. Yeah. So how do I decrypt? Well, decryption is trivial, right? Take the last, so look at the last column of this matrix. That looks like a Raghib encryption, right? It's A plus the 0 here, yeah, so that's A. B, which is the LWE sample, plus something that's very large, so it's close to Q over 2 times X, which is exactly Raghib's encryption. So you can throw away, you get a ciphertext. To decrypt, you throw away all of the ciphertext except the last column. Think of it as a Raghib ciphertext and decrypt. That's it. Okay. So why are there all these other columns floating around if I'm not using it for decryption? For multiplicative homomorphism, which we'll see in a second. Why is this secure? It's the same reason as regex encryption was secure. If you look at this entire matrix, right, this looks like a random matrix because what? It's a bunch of LWE samples. These BIs are LWE samples. They look like totally random by the assumption. So then it looks like a matrix that depends on the message plus a totally random matrix, which is totally random. Okay, so that gives you security. So all these things, yeah. All you need to do now is to check additive and multiplicative homomorphism. Additive, all you need to be able to check for yourself. You do the right thing, you get additive. Homomorphism, more or less, yeah. What you want is multiplicative. Let's do that. Yeah. Good. Yeah. All right. Good. To do multiplicative homomorphism, let me look at this ciphertext in a slightly different way, okay, by the side, yeah? What does that mean? Let me try to decrypt this ciphertext and see what happens. Okay, so let me write down what's called the decryption equation for the ciphertext. What is the decryption equation? It is the following. S concatenated with -1, yeah, this is a vector, S and -1, and I multiply it with the ciphertext here, right? What happens? S -1 times this whole matrix is close to 0. Right? If these BIs had no error, then they would all be 0. But there are errors, so it's small, right? It's some times the ciphertext, C. This is C. This whole giant business is C. Equals a small error. E is itself a vector of small errors. Plus what do I get? Plus x, which is a scalar, times this vector S -1 times this matrix G. X, which is a scalar, this is a vector times G. This is what you get. Okay, this is the decryption equation. Yeah. All right. So now the observation is that this equation, it looks complicated, but it should be familiar to you for those of you who did linear algebra, which is what, 18.7 something. Yeah. Should look very familiar to you. In fact, let me make it familiar to you. Let me make it obvious. Okay. Let's say for a moment that there is no error. Why not? Doesn't matter anyway, right? No error. Let's say there's no G. Okay, G is, after all, more or less the identity matrix, tensored with something. Forget it. Identity matrix. Okay. What is that equation? Does that look familiar to you? You have a matrix, C. Yeah. You have a vector. When you multiply this vector by the matrix, you get the vector. You get a scalar multiple of the vector. What is it? Eigenvalues and eigenvectors, right? So S -1, the secret key really, is an eigenvector of the ciphertext matrix with eigenvalue as a message. That's what it looks like. And now you add stuff to it, okay, times G, okay, never mind. E plus, so this is not an eigenvector, but it's an approximate eigenvector. Fine, that's what it is. Okay, that's what it is. Yeah. But let me actually go back to the learning without error setting. Okay, so forget all these things. Let's try to do multiplicative homomorphism. Okay, and then we'll actually do the real thing. Okay. So now I have a ciphertext C. I have a ciphertext called C1, let's say. I have a ciphertext C2. X2. How do I create a ciphertext that is that encrypts the products of X1 and X2? thoughts? Well, how do you do the sum? Let's just say sum, not XOR, but sum over sum, integer sum. How would you do that? Yeah, you have two ciphertexts, C1 and C2. I mean, there aren't very many things you can do with with matrices. I mean, there are, but you know, few elementary things, right? You add, yeah, you add, right? So if you add C1 and C2, you get a matrix whose eigenvalue with respect to the eigenvector S minus 1 is the sum of the eigenvalues x1, x2. Very good, right? How about homomorphic multiplication? Yeah, I mean, there isn't much else you can do. So let's see that, okay? So C1 times C2, I claim, is a homomorphic multiplication, homomorphically multiplied ciphertext. How do you see that? Let's try to decrypt this ciphertext, right? Namely, multiply it by S minus 1. What do you get? You get S minus 1 times C1 associativity, right? S minus 1 times C1, which, by the way, is X1 times S minus 1 times C2. Yeah, by this equation. Now, what is S minus 1 times C2? It is X1. This guy is X2 times S minus 1, right? So this ciphertext, the product of the two ciphertexts, looks like an encryption of X1 times X2. Certainly, if you try to decrypt it using the secret key, you will get X1 times X2. Yes? That's it. End of story. Except you have to go back and put everything back in and see the errors and the G back in and see if it works. Yes?
Wait, but C1 is like m plus 1 times m, right?
Say again?
The dimension of C1 is m plus 1 times m.
Is m, yeah? N plus 1 by m. Yeah?
Yeah. So
Make m equals n plus 1. Okay, then you're happy, right?
Okay.
All right, very good. Yeah? Okay. Oh. Yeah. But we have to see if it actually works with putting everything in. Like, I showed you an encryption scheme, I showed you a different encryption scheme, which by the way is insecure, so it's not very
You
hard.
can't do that, right? Because G is not square.
But then it's identity matrix. You see? So I just replaced G. The fact that I erased G means that G is I. Yes? You know what? Your objection is totally valid. Let's put the G back in and see what happens. Okay? Let's put the G back in. And why not the arrow back in also? Now you say, look, what is the ciphertext? The ciphertext has to have the same dimension as G, right? So what is the dimension of G? G is n by, well, actually n plus 1 by n plus 1 log Q. More or less, right? The number of elements in a row. Smallest log Q, maybe C, something like that. Okay? That is m. M is, I'm going to set m to be n plus 1 times log Q. Why not? I can do whatever I want. Still, I cannot do C1 times C2. That doesn't compile. Yeah, because it's not a square matrix inherently. It doesn't compile for a good reason. Okay, so here's what I'm going to do. Oh, by the way, I mean, maybe you don't see it right away, but even if it did compile, okay, when I multiply C1 by C2, this error is going to get multiplied by C2 implicitly. That's going to screw everything up because C2 has very large numbers. So there are multiple reasons why it doesn't work and it shouldn't work. Okay? So here's what works. One tweak that makes it work. Let me take C2. Look at the operator G inverse, okay, which maps C, which is an n by, well, n plus 1 by n plus 1 log Q matrix, and maps it into an n plus 1 log Q by n plus 1 log Q matrix. Yeah? Call it G inverse of C. So G inverse of C is not G inverse times C, because G inverse does not exist. Yes? It's not, think of it as an operator that acts on matrices and produces matrices. What does this operator do? Well, tell you what it does. It has a property that G times G inverse of C is C. Okay, so it behaves like it should. and G inverse of C has 0, 1 entries. Okay, that's the property of it. I want this guy to have only 0, 1 entries. Okay? And when I take this guy and multiply on the left by G, I should get back C. So that is basically the inverse of it. Yeah? That's what I want. So what is G inverse of C? How do I come up with this measure?
Does it like make the entries of C in like binary representation?
Correct. 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 Take C, take each entry, and blow it up into a vector, which is a binary representation. That is G inverse of C. So clearly, G times G inverse of C pulls the guys back together, reconstructs, goes from the binary representation to the actual number. Okay. So given this, what is the homomorphic operation? It's C1 times G inverse of C2. That's it. Okay, this is the homomorphic multiplication. Now everything works out because, see, this is n plus 1 by m, right? This is m by m. If you set m to be n plus 1 times no q. Beautifully works out. Why is it correct? Well, let's try. S minus 1 times C1 times G inverse of C2 is what? S minus 1 times C1 is error 1 plus x1 times G inverse of C2. Yes? This is error 1 times G inverse of C2, which by the way is small, because E1 is small, G inverse is 0 ones, so it adds up a bunch of things, it's small. Plus x1 times G inverse of C2. What is x1 times G times? Over here. Yeah, I wrote it incorrectly. This is good. G times G inverse of C2 is C2. So S minus 1 times C2 is expanded again. E2 plus S minus 1 x2 times this times G. What you get is this small error plus this small error. X1 times E2 is small because X1 is a bit and E2 is small. Some small error plus X1, X2 times S minus 1 times G. That's it. This is what you get when you decrypt this ciphertext. Therefore, you get this looks like an encryption of X1 times X2. Case closed. Okay. All right. Let's continue next time.